We have a good one. I just filmed the worst palettes. So this one was red. Green is good, right? Yeah, we'll do green because that's good for good palettes. For today's video, I'm going to be filming my top 10 palettes for 2023. This is what it's all about, baby. Even though I wasn't as into eyeshadow palettes this year, I still love palettes. Don't get me wrong. So a couple days ago, I posted my rankings of every single palette I tried this year, which was like, honestly, I'm not sure. It's either 85, 86, or 87 palettes. In the 80s is how many palettes I tried. Then the previous post before this was the worst palettes that I tried. And now we're at the tippity top 10. Let me know if you predicted right if you watched that main eyeshadow palette rankings video. But yeah, obviously these are just my opinions. These might not be the greatest palettes to you, but they are to me. So let's go ahead and get into it, starting off with the number 10 palette that I tried this year, and I'm shocked, but I actually have been reaching for this so much, and it might just have that new shiny factor that put it into 10th place. Maybe if I had ranked a few months later, it wouldn't, but that's where I ranked yesterday. So when I was like laying them out, you know, this is the ABH Mini Sultry. Now, does this hold a candle to the original ABH Sultry palette? It does, except for the packaging. The packaging, meh. I still do think the big version of the Sultry palette is so much better, but they did a good job of putting what I love about the big Sultry into this mini Sultry. These tones these were made for me. The mini Morgan palette is what this should be called. These are my ideal everyday tones. I love how there's variety and depth here from light all the way to black because you know I love a good dark eyeshadow for eyeliner nowadays. You have some gray tones. This one is a little bit warm, right? Some neutral taupey tone. It hits all the boxes for what I need in a palette for the eyeshadow that I tend to feel the most beautiful in. So we love that. But I couldn't rank it higher than 10 because it is not the big palette, okay? Number 9. I was a little mad about this palette, so I didn't talk about it too much, but like it doesn't matter because it's still one of the best palettes I launched this year. So this is the Pat McGrath Labs Sunlit Seduction palette. I let my disappointment get the best of me. I didn't talk about it for a little bit, but when I was rounding everything up, it still is one of the most beautiful palettes that launched this year. So this is Pat McGrath's annual Mothership $125 or $130 palette, and it is not as good as her previous Motherships, but she's lucky that her Mothership palettes are so good and so beautiful that it doesn't need to be as good, and it still is one of the best. But just know, this is not the one that I would recommend you spend your hard-earned money on, but it still is a really beautiful pink palette if that's what you're into. If you don't collect Pat McGrath, you won't feel like this is really repetitive. The only thing I have to say, this shade right here, bad quality. Doesn't stick to the eyelid, is chunky and flaky, but the rest, very, very beautiful. I mean, the height of this ranking, there's biases behind it. I love a Mothership palette, you guys know that. It's not Pat McGrath's best work, but it's still a beautiful palette. And you know what? I was complaining about pinks and roses. I wore pinks and roses so many times, so I need to eat my words. I complain, but then I always wear my pinks and roses. So anyways, I'm a little embarrassed to rank that so high because I talk so bad about it, but like, it's pretty. Okay, number 8. These guys came in at the last second and swooped up my love. So this is the YSL Mini Couture Clutch. This is the 100. Now this, my taupey cool toned dream. I love this shimmer right here because it's glimmery, shimmery, very luxurious, and these mattes pretty much blend themselves. Now the best way I can describe these palettes, because there were 4 that I loved, all 4 of them: elegance and effortless. Not only does it look effortless, but it was literally effortless to apply because these do blend themselves. Very chic as well. Great for mature eyelids. This is my ideal mature eyelid formula, even though this glimmery shade is so glimmery, because I know you guys were saying, like, I ranked the House Lab shadows as the worst, but you guys were saying that's great for mature eyelids. This one is so much better in my opinion. Wears better, doesn't fade, doesn't crease, easy to use, has that nice satin formula that's going to leave a hydration to a mature eyelid. We love this, and it's taupey, which I love. Okay, number 7, another newcomer. This is the Viseart Violette Vespertine. Again, this is one where I said, you know, if you have a lot from the brand. This is not like a must-have. You're not going to die without it, but as it stands against the rest of the palettes that I tried this year, it's so good. Viseart creates some of the best quality, you guys. And it's purple. You know I love my purples. It looks so good against brown eyes if you have brown eyes. And this is still like a neutral purpley palette. Like, it's a little bit more in the plummy family, and depending on what mattes you mess around with, you can definitely keep this very, very neutral, but the undertones of the purple are really going to bring out the eye color, and Viseart has really improved their shimmer formula to make them even better than they were before. And I used Viseart eyeshadows in my kit because they were just so easy to use on everybody. So yeah, I love this launch. I think these colors are gorgeous, and you can get some deep smoky looks. And sometimes, a lot of the times, I'm not gonna lie, the Viseart palettes haven't been the most inclusive for deeper complexions. This one totally is. If you want a vampy, smoky eye, you're gonna get it with that. But you also don't have to. Number 6. I'm shocked. Truly shocked. But this is one of my most used palettes of the year. So maybe I'm not that shocked because I said as long as it's near me, I'm gonna reach for it all the time. That is the Patrick Ta Major Dimension 3 palette. She's so boring to look at, but in the best way. Like, it's just a collection of lovely, creamy, buttery, pigmented mattes. And I used this palette all of the time because I kept it since it launched by my desk. And I was just reaching for it whenever I needed colors, because this white right here, one of the best whites I've ever tried. It's so pigmented. It's amazing to put all over the eyelid. You have a nice matte black. You can even use these creams, which I'm not super partial to, but I use them as eyeliner and stuff. This just has any matte you're gonna need to add definition, to add undertones. This one was great. I know the big debate, Viseart versus this. I prefer Viseart, the matte palette. This one is much more like loosely packed. It's more of a modern formula, I would say, because we really like super pigmented, buttery, soft mattes. That's what this fulfills quality-wise. The Viseart's definitely a little bit of a drier formulation, so they're different, but that doesn't mean this isn't good. It's a very buttery, deliciously blendable formula. So it's a really, really great matte palette that I used a ton. 5. I went through a green kick this year, and Natasha Denona had read my mind when she launched this, because right when I was on my green kick is when she launched the Yucca Yucca palette. I'd call it Yucca and somebody would say, that's wrong. I'd call it Yucca and somebody would say, that's wrong. So it's the Yucca Yucca palette. Anyways, this palette is so fun. It's unique. I feel like there's not a lot of palettes on the market that are like this, but it's still that fantastic Natasha Denona formula. I had so much fun with this palette this year. Natasha Denona is officially my favorite eyeshadow palette brand. Not only does she create some of the best formulations, but she also, I feel, listens to her audience or her customers and comes out with unique and fun color stories, and we still make it work, you know? You don't need to come out with a rose or a brown eyeshadow palette, though I do love a brown eyeshadow palette, to please me. You can come out with a green palette and I will make it work. The way that her mind puts together color stories is genius. I had so much fun with this one. I was on a huge green kick in 2022 and 2023, so I was so excited she came out with this and just combined amazing colors together that only a true artist can do. Number 4, another mini YSL Couture Mini Clutch. This is the shade 400. This is the one that keeps selling out because honestly, you guys, it's so beautiful. This is what I mean by when I say I complain with brands come out with like rose palettes, but then I love it. This is another one that I think is just a precious item in my collection. So this one has 2 shimmers, which is different from the other ones. But no, this is so flattering and so pretty on so many different skin tones. Again, it's that same effortless formula, elegant look on the eyes, just rosy. And I'm more of like a taupey eyeshadow kind of person, so it's a big deal comparing it to the taupey eyeshadow that I put this one above it. But every time I wear this, like, oh, it just looks so good. And I love that formula. Number 3, from Odin's Eye. This is the Jewels and Gem palette. This is what I'm talking about with Odin's Eye. I struggled with their most recent collection, honestly. I need them to do what they did with this one. These color stories, there's two. These color stories, I love them, obsessed with them. So this one is like the more purpley one. You can actually get pretty wearable looks, surprisingly. I love when a palette that does not look wearable can surprise you. The shimmer's incredible. The matte's super pigmented, very easy to blend. And I'm just going to show you number 2 so that I can compare them. 2 is Stone and Rock. And the only reason this is above the Jewels and Gem is because I was on more of a green kick this year. This one has a lot of variety here in the depth. Both of them, it kind of depends on my mood, which one I like more. I would say I've used the green one a lot more, so that's why I put it over top today. But it's just so disappointing that their most recent collection didn't even touch this formula. I need them to keep it like this formula. These color stories, they're so thoughtfully put together. You can get monochromatic looks, but you can also get looks that are very different and unique with these. Normally, when Odin's Eye comes out with palettes, they rank in the very, very top, just like these are doing. Like literally almost my favorite eyeshadow palettes of the year. So that's why I was so upset about the other Odin's Eye palettes, because these ones, yummy! Okay, number 1. I think you can guess it if you are at all familiar with my videos. It was not only my favorite palette of the year, it's my most used palette of the year. I even traveled with it, and I never travel with palettes from this brand because they're bigger and they're more expensive. I don't want them to break or lose them. Natasha Denona, I Need a Nude. It is the palette that I'm wearing today. Normally, I don't choose to get this tone of looks from this palette, but today I was going for something a little bit more vampy and just kind of smudgy, undone look, because the I Need a Nude palette, there are warmer tones in here, but not too many. I literally went straight for the warm tones specifically for today's look. Super easy. Just used Vague right here all over my lid, and then I used some of Wit right here to blend that out just to get that overall warm, smudgy, messy eye look. And then I finished off with Sheen just all over the lid for some glimmer. We love glimmer here, but I've done all different types of looks with this palette. It is a nude tone palette, and I've gotten a lot of nude tone looks with this. Love the quality of this. I mean, it's just the best palette. I've been into less eyeshadow this year. I've been using a lot of eyeshadow sticks, a lot of just shimmery shades all over the lid and nothing else. And I feel like why I reached for this palette so much is because it had so many of those shimmery lid options. But I've also been really into using shadow liner, so I've been using like that for my eyeliner a lot. It's just really catered to what's been popular for me and everybody else, you know, taking a step back from eyeshadow. For being an eyeshadow palette, this really caters to that very simple eyeshadow look of just putting one color in the crease and one color all over the lid and calling it a day. Really smudgy, simple looks like the one I did today is what's really popular, and this palette's perfect for it. And then of course it's that great Natasha Denona quality. I've talked about this so much, I feel like I should stop, but it's so good. I mean, I don't know how many other adjectives I can use to describe these palettes, but just know these 10 are the business. But it was a really successful year of eyeshadow palettes, if you ask me. There were not many bad ones, and I would say from like in my rankings, like 60 and up, I'm like, this one's good, this one's good, this one's good. So definitely check out that main body of palette rankings video that I did, because the good eyeshadow palettes go beyond than just these 10. So I want you guys to comment down below if you did watch that one to let me know if you predicted any of my top 10 correctly. And think about what were your favorite eyeshadow palettes this year. Give me 1 or 2 if you were wearing eyeshadow this year. What was your favorite? And make sure you check out that big ranking. Make sure you check out the worst palettes. I've of course also done my best makeup, worst makeup videos as well. Yeah, I mean, I'm almost done pretty much, I think, with like my roundups for the year. So I gave you all the tea on everything that launched this year. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye guys, have a good one.